Welcome back, folks, for another quick discussion video. Now, it is Tank Hunter weekend, so that means all tank destroyers up to tier 7 are discounted. That means premium tank destroyers are also discounted, which means I get to choose between the E25 or the SU-122-44. Now, I really wanted both of these tanks a long time. The SU-122-44 is a very good tank with very good DPM on that 122mm gun. It fires about every 7 seconds, like a Hellcat. So, fuck. But the E25 is also very good. Sneaky, quick, small as an ELC. Amazing too. So, fuck. I don't know which one to choose. And a lot of people have been asking which one to choose, the E25 or the SU-122-44. Now, this video is going to discuss all the stats between these two tanks and my opinion, my final opinion about which one to choose. So, comment below if you're going to decide my decisions are crap or I made bad choices, but here are the judgments. Alright, so I'll go over the stats first before I make my call, but you can see why I choose my call in the end and why I picked that tank. So let's go over the stats. The E25 and the SU-122-44 are tier 7 premium tank destroyers. That means they get premium money making capabilities because they're premium tanks. Now, the SU-122-44 doesn't get special matchmaking like the E25. The SU-122-44 will meet up tier 9s and tier 8s as well as tier 7s, whereas the E25 only meets up to tier 8 and tier 7. So the SU-122-44 will not get premium matchmaking. That's the only letdown of the matchmaking part between these two premium tanks. Now, the SU-122-44 will cost you about 6,750 gold. Now let me check to be sure. So we go into the tech tree and it will cost you normally 6,750 gold. Now it is on sale, that's why I got gold so I can buy these tanks, but on sale is 4,725, which is a pretty nice deal in my opinion. Very nice deal. So we're gonna have that here. And the E25 is on sale as well because it's Tank Hunter weekend. So it is 4,690 gold. I can't even see. Glares. Glares on my screen. But these two tanks are on sale. So the gold cost is only difference of 50 gold. So the difference is negligible, mostly. Now, let's go over the stats so we can compare. The tanks only has 10 points of different HP between the both of them. And these two are fully upgraded because they're premium tanks, so these stats are real, whereas normal tank stats are different because they're not upgraded. So, but we can compare these two stats because they're fully upgraded. So we can see that there's only 10 points of HP difference between these two tanks, which means, alright, so the HP is about the same, mostly. The E25 weighs less in comparison to the SU-122-44. Now, they both doesn't weigh that much, but the E25 gets more ram damage because it weighs so much less than the SU-122-44. So, that's alright. But it gets way better engine in comparison. 700 horsepower to 500 horsepower means this tank has a very good specific power. I wrote down the specific power on my paper, so it says 26.62 ratio of horsepower per ton, which means this tank shifts like crazy. So the E25 is a very well-known cockroach. It can shift like mad. So yeah, this thing is more of a light tank. The SU-122-44 is more of a medium tank maneuverability. It has about 15.24 specific power. So this tank is more in line with tier 8 mediums. So this is a more of a medium tank maneuverability. Both tank has a very good speed limit. The E25 has very good speed limit of 65 km per hour, so huzzah! The SU-122-44 has a very good speed limit as well, 47.5. So these both tank can move pretty quickly in a straight line. These two tank also turn pretty quick, 44 degrees traverse for the E25 and 42 for the SU-122. So these two tanks can turn around and not get flanked easy because they're fixed mounted guns. So these two tanks can direct their fire against flankers pretty well. So these two tanks are not easily flanked. Now here comes the difference. The armor wise, E25 has no armor. 50 at the front, 30 at the side, 30 at the rear. whereas the SU-122 has 90 at the front, very well sloped, 75 at the sides, 45 at the rear. I'll explain about armor in Tank Inspector coming up soon, but we'll talk about the armor later. So because this is a very decisive difference between these two tanks. Now the gun wise, these two tanks has very different guns. I'll explain the guns when I pop up the guns. But let's finish talking about the view range and gun traverse. Now gun traverse on the E25 is very good, 44 degrees per second. Even though it's a fixed turret, it still moves the gun pretty well. So the 44 degrees per second of shifting the gun is very good. The SU-122-44 has okay-ish 26 degrees per second gun traverse. So the tank doesn't shift the gun as well easy or for snapshots and whatnot. So the gun doesn't move as fast, but it's alright. It's not that bad. View range wise, however, that's the crippling part of the SU-122-44. It only has 330 meters of view range, whereas the E25 gets very decent 360 meters of view range. Now, both of these tanks are closed top vehicles. That means they do not have an open top where the crew members can pop out and look in front of them. But the E25 has a very good view range of 360. That's almost the same as the Hellcat. Let me see the Hellcat. The Hellcat is 380-ish? I don't remember. 370. So it is very good view range. The Hellcat is an open top vehicle and it gets 370 meters of view range. This tank is a closed top vehicle, small too, and it gets 360. So it is very decent for a view range of these for a small tank like this. So the view range wise, I gotta give it to E25. Signal range, both are very decent, 700 meters and 710 meters. So signal range, these two tanks will not go out of contact. So that's covered. Now let's talk about the guns of these two tanks. I have the two guns ready. So the E25 75mm as well as the SU-122's 122mm. Both tanks have a very rapid firing gun, in my opinion, because 20 rounds per minute on a 75mm is ridiculous. This thing fires every 3 seconds, so that is crazy. Without gun rammer, of course, so that is nuts. The SU-122 also fires pretty quickly, about every 8 seconds or so, 7.5 seconds, so this is also pretty crazy. Now with gun rammer, I already looked this up, but with gun rammer, the E25 fires about every 2.5 seconds, which is fucking ridiculous. SU-122-44 fires every 7 seconds, like a Hellcat. So, God, they're amazing. So DPM on both tanks is phenomenally good. The E25 has about 3,100-ish. The SU-122-44 has about 3,300-ish. So DPM on both tanks are fucking amazing. So let's not talk about that because fanboys will get over it. But let's go to penetration because that's important. If you cannot penetrate stuff you shoot at, that's pointless, right? So penetration wise, the E25 75mm has about 150mm pen, which is kind of below average in my opinion for a tier 7 tank. The Yak Panther at tier 7 has 203mm penetration for a tank destroyer, whereas you have 150. So yeah, 150 is not going to do work. Not really. It does 135 damage per shot, which is also like almost peanuts, but accuracy wise is very good. 0.3, that is the best accuracy in the game in my knowledge, because I don't think there's any other guns that has 0.2 something rather accuracy. So 0.3 is actually the best accuracy in the game. That's phenomenally good. 1.5 second aim time is also very good. I think it's also one of the best aim time in the game as well. I don't think there's a 1.3 second aim time, but that is just fucking ridiculous. Let's look at the Waffentrüger. I think the Waffentrüger has one of the best aim time as well as accuracy for the 128mm gun. Where's the Waffentrüger E100? Where the hell is it? Click. I'm sorry, I have to do this. Just want to be sure of all the gun selections. So, oh my god, it has 2.9. Oh, 0.29. So the accuracy wise, holy shit, this thing is fucking accurate. As well as a good aim time. Holy fuck. But yeah, accuracy wise as well as aim time, it is one of the best accuracy and aim time in the game. So no doubt, yes. The accuracy wise on this tank is very good. However, the penetration is not that good. And the damage is not that good. But you do fire pretty fast. So you have to aim for weak spots, obviously. Or if you have side shots, this tank will do well. unless you're firing gold, of course. But let's look at the SU-122's 122mm. It does fire pretty quick, like a Hellcat, every 7 seconds if you have a gun rammer. 175mm pen, like all traditional 122mm on like the KV-1S or the IS. So penetration wise, you already know the penetration on this gun. It does 400 damage though, almost 400 damage, which is very good. Punchy gun, very damaging. Accuracy wise, ooh, it's 0.41, so the accuracy is not that good. Aim time is also not that good, 2.9, but it's not like 3.4 second aim time. But 2.9 second aim time is kind of bad. 0.41 accuracy is also kind of bad. So this gun kind of reminds me of the same gun, or not the same gun, the same type of playstyle, like the SU-85I. Now I just got the SU-85I from a few weeks ago, and this tank feels like almost the same on paper in comparison to the SU-122-44. Now DPM wise, this gun has a very good DPM as well, about 2700-ish. Accuracy, it doesn't have that good of accuracy. Aim time also not that good for a Russian tank. So this is accuracy. So the accuracy you can see is pretty much the same, and the penetration is kind of below average. But so far, in my opinion, the gun is more of a brawling type of gun instead of a sniping type of gun because of the accuracy and aim time. You cannot really snipe at this 122mm. So yeah, that's gonna be tricky. Whereas with the accuracy and aim time, you can actually aim for weak spots with the E25, whereas you couldn't really aim for weak spots on the SU-122. Now, also put into matchmaking perspective, this gun will face up to tier 9s. So this tank, the SU-122-44, will fight stuff like the E25, the VK35 or 4502P, whatever you call that thing. But that thing is fucking monstrous since the buff within the 9.2 patch. So yeah, you also get to face the Doom Turtle. The fucking Doom Turtle is fucking ridiculous. You can't even penetrate it with a fucking ISU. So unless you shoot the lower glacis, but still, you have to use this crappy 175mm penetration against tanks that have almost 300mm of effective armor. That is ridiculous. Now the E25 doesn't get hands off of hard targets to shoot at. The E25 will face KV4s, which is very hard to penetrate at the front. Porsche Tigers, Ferdinands, the T28s, ooh, also very hard. But the two guns are below penetration. Obviously, both guns are below penetration for their tiers. So it's depends on the matchmaking, obviously. Now, judgment-wise, I don't know. It seems that the SU-122-44 is more of a medium tank, a brawling, flanking medium tank, whereas the E25 is more of a light tank. So both tanks have different niche. So niche, whatever you pronounce it, fuck it, God. But both tanks need to satisfy a different role as well. So the E25 could be played like a scout tank. The SU-122-44 could be played like a fucking medium tank. So it's a very hard decision, no doubt, very hard decision. But looking back on the stats and looking back on the all the tank's capability, now before I make the judgment call based on the armor, I would say the E25 is a more viable option. So let's go into Tech Inspector to look at the armor before we make the final call. Alright, here we have the armor of the E25. 50 at the front, 30 at the sides, 30 at the rear. So slope back is pretty well sloped. It gives us 71mm at the front, well sloped. If you angle it upwards, it is about 80ish. Lower glacis is also about 80ish, slope backwards. So that's pretty nice. About 100mm if you look up, or yeah. So armor wise, it is well sloped, but it's not that thick enough to bounce shot. Side armor is very well armor or sloped. So basically, if you angle this tank like this, it will automatically bounce if they hit you at the sides. But 30 at the sides is also easily to penetrate if you shoot flat on, and 30 at the rear is also easily penetrated. So armor of this tank is not that good, obviously. The gun mantlet will throw shots by bouncing ricocheting off, but it's not that thick as well. It will ricochet if you hit on the slope circle of the mantlet, obviously, but don't depend on it, obviously. Do not depend on the mantlet to save your life. So the E25 doesn't have very good armor, obviously, but let's look at the SU-122-44. Now the armor on this tank, however, it is very good for a tank destroyer. 90mm at the front, 75 at the sides, 45 at the rear. Now effective armor at the front, slope backwards, is almost about 180-ish, so that's very good. But if you shoot at the lower plate, obviously, instead of the upper plate, it is about 150-ish. So armor-wise, it is decent, very decent. Side armor-wise is 75mm slope upwards into 80-ish millimeter, and the rear is 45-ish. So yeah, but this armor will troll other 122mm guns. That's up to 175mm pin. Yeah, so the armor is not bad. So yeah, the gun mantlet is also very trollish. So trollish gun mantlets as well. Now let's look at the stat comparison. So we can see the SU-122-44 has very good DPM, 200 more, but this is without gun rammer, of course. So damage wise, it has very better damage and better penetration. So yeah, it's a bigger caliber, obviously. But these two shells fire different velocity. The SU-122 fires slower, or the shell moves slower than the E25, so you have to lead your shots more, obviously. Specific power wise, not even in comparison. The E25 almost have double the specific power, so this tank is slower in comparison as well. But it does have better traction on different terrains than the E25, no doubt. Camo rating is also a very big factor. The E25 has very good camo rating of 25%. That is nuts. That is the third best camo rating of all the tanks in the game, only bested by the Tier 3 French tank destroyer, the bottle opener, as well as the Tier 4 British tank destroyer, the Pringles can top, whatever, the Electo. But still, it is the third best camo rating for the E25, whereas the SU-122-44 is also not bad, 21%, 21 or 22%. So camo rating, both tanks has very good camo rating, even while on the move. Now, both tanks are premium tanks. That means their camo rating after firing is not nerfed like all regular tank destroyers. So they actually get to keep their camo rating, more of a camo rating bonus after they fire when than regular tank destroyers, since the 9.1 debuff on the nerf on the 9.1 patch for all tank destroyers. So, but look at this way, the E25 has better view range. Radio range is about the same, but the view range is very prominent, almost 10% more. So that's gonna be harsh. As well as the matchmaking. This tank gets tier 9 matchmaking, whereas the E25 gets tier 8 matchmaking at best. So, and the tank has better gun depression, 8 degrees of gun depression compared to the 4 degrees of gun depression. Ooh, so yeah, that's all right. Let's look at the horizontal gun traverse. That means the E25 has a wider gun arc than the SU-122. So the SU-122's gun arc is not as wide as the E25's gun arc. So that is crazy too. Oh my gosh. As well, oh my gosh. But yeah, in all respects, the E25 is more of a wider angled scout tank / tank destroyer, whereas the SU-122 is more of a medium tank that wants to snipe, in my opinion. So let's go back to the game and we'll make up my mind, or I'll make up my mind on which tank to choose. Alright, final judgment call. So basically the E25 plays like a light tank, whereas the SU-122 plays more of a medium tank. Both tank has very good camo rating. Both tank move pretty well. Both tank have very good maneuverability. Gun is also very punchy. Very good DPM on both tanks. So I don't know which tank to choose. It's a very hard decision. But in my opinion, the E25 needs to have a higher learning curve, whereas the SU-122 is more forgiving because of the armor. So, but the SU-122 does face up to tier 9s and tier 8s as well as tier 7s, whereas the E25 only face up to tier 8s. So unless you have a very good knowledge about tier 9 tanks, such as the Doom Turtle or the VK48 or 4502, whatever Porsche Tiger fucking thing, or the E25 or the STI, holy shit, you face a fucking STI in this thing. God. So, I mean, there are tanks in the game that's superior in armor when you're using a very bad gun, the 175mm penetrating gun. That's the same penetration on a KV-1S or IS in my opinion, but still you're using that gun on a tier 9 tank. So, and you don't have a turret to work with, even though you have mobility. So I don't know, I mean, the E25 is a more steeper learning curve because you have no armor, but you do have to rely on scouting abilities as well as maneuverability. So if you like playing light tanks, choose the E25. If you like playing medium tanks or have a needs a more forgiving time, play the SU-122-44. So that's the main difference between these two tanks. Both tanks have very good DPM. Both tanks are pretty quick. Both tanks are very good at making credits. So I don't know. There's an airplane outside. He's trying to sway my position. Go away, airplane. But I don't know. I'm really stuck. So basically, in my opinion, I like to play like a pussy. So to be honest, I really do like playing pussy unless I'm playing a heavy tank. So when I'm playing a tank destroyer, it's because I love playing tank destroyer. They hide in the back and shoot at people and just run away if needed. So the E25 looks a more promising pick because it can scout. So when the chips are down, so for example, if you have no more ammo left, you can actually go scout. Whereas the SU-122-44, you can't really scout in that tank. Scouting is also like two very viable options because, for example, for tank destroyers as well as medium tank, both tanks are doing damage. So the pathway is like the same. Both tanks are damage dealing based. So what if he runs out of ammo? What if he runs out of the 35 rounds the SU-122-44 can carry? What the hell are you gonna do then? Are you gonna just ram people to death? So basically that's a very prominent part. Whereas the E25, if you run out of ammo, you can still scout, active scout or passive scout. Because of camo rating, maneuverability, and the view range, you can actually scout in the E25. Whereas the SU-122, ammo-wise, you run out of ammo, you just become a fucking battering ram. So, it's a very hard decision. I know it's a very hard decision. A lot of people had trouble with this decision before. So I would like to hear you guys on it. I really would like to hear your guys' opinion on this thing. But in good old honesty, I would have to choose the E25. That's my final decision. The E25 is a more versatile option because it can scout when needed. It has a very good mobility, very good reverse speed of 20 kilometers per hour. It can move backwards at 20 kilometers per hour. So Jesus, it's like an E25, or it's like an ELC, I'm sorry. It's like an ELC on crack with an auto-loading gun. The gun fires every 2.5 seconds. That's the same amount of rate of fire for the French auto-loading cannons. Like the AMX 13 or 15 or AMX 1390. So the AMX 1390's auto-loading gun has an intermediate reload time of 2.7 seconds on the 90mm. So this gun had to put another shell in the chamber for 2.7 seconds before firing another shell, which is almost the same as the reload time for the E25. So this is like an auto-loading rapid-firing cannon, whereas the SU-122 is like a Hellcat on crack too, because the gun can fire every 7 seconds. So now if you put it this way, if you put the SU-122 as a top tier, if both tanks are top tier, the SU-122 would definitely kill everything without hesitation, because the armor will help it, as well as the DPM on the gun. But the E25 is a more viable option in tier 8s, because it can actually scale and be an annoyance, whereas the SU-122-44 is not as viable in tier 8s or tier 9s. So I like tank that can my mouth is parched, I'm sorry. I like tanks that can outperform their roles in higher tiers, such as the ISU-152. Now, the reason why I like the SU-152 is because the cannon. The gun on this thing is amazing. It can penetrate tier 10 tanks without failure most of the time, unless you're shooting a mouse or something. But the gun on this thing means it can carry its weight in tier 10 or tier 9 games rather than tier 8 games that it faces. Now, this thing will dominate tier 8 games, obviously, but if it gets put into a tier 9 or tier 8 games, it will have no problem dealing with it. Same goes for the KV-2. Even though the KV-2 is a tier 6 tank, this thing can carry its own weight. It can still do damage. Even though it doesn't penetrate, it can still do damage to tier 7 or tier 8 tanks without question. So it does carry its own weight. Whereas for the SU-122-44, unless you're flanking with that tank, which is very risky, it doesn't really penetrate or carry its weight around in tier 8 or tier 9 games. Whereas for the E25, you can actually play it like a light tank. You can still do good. Even though you're not doing damage, you can still spot for your team, which is very viable, which is very good because you're playing the role of a light tank. And sometimes there are no light tanks at the top tier. There's no WZ to help you, there's no Chafee to help you. So the E25 is still very good camo rating, fast maneuverable scout if needed. So it is still a second job it can do. So it's like on a resume, the E25 could do a tank destroyer part as well as a scout part. Where the SU-122 is a more damage dealing, but if you cannot penetrate or anchor accuracy wise, you're not going to do damage. So final decision, final fucking decision is E25. I gotta give it to E25 because it can scout. So basically that's like a second trick of the trade. So if, for example, if you can't find a job in a tank destroyer department of whatever company, you can actually go into another company that specializes in freaking scouting. So that's more of a resume, metaphorically speaking. Whereas the SU-122, unless you can flank with a bunch of medium tanks like wolf packs, your second job as a medium tank is, however, hampered because a lot of tanks can damage it and it's not as maneuverable. So being a medium tank rather than being a light tank is more risky in my opinion, obviously. So I mean, light tanks can also be medium tanks. As you saw in my AMX 1375 video, I actually play well as a medium tank when I'm playing that tank. It's a light tank too, but so honestly speaking, E25. That's my answer. But yeah, I've been talking to myself for like 30 minutes, but still E25 is a very good viable option. Now, I really would like to hear you guys on your opinion about this because 6,000 gold is 30 bucks. That's like a buttload of games on Steam, so it is very expensive. But both tanks are very good. Both tanks are nice. If you like playing War Tanks like I do, I play War Tanks like butt ton. How many tanks do I have? I have no fucking idea. But still, I love this game, and I really would like to spend money on it because of how much I like it. Now, these two tanks are very hard to choose, obviously. So I don't know. I really like to hear your guys' opinion on this because the E25 is a very good tank, as well as the SU-122-44. Now, even though the E25 has a very good, very steep learning curve, it is viable as a scout. Whereas the SU-122 could dominate tier 7 top tier match, but it kind of falls off in tier 8s and tier 9s, obviously. Whereas the E25 can still perform a role of a scout in a tier 8 game. So I don't know what you guys should, yeah, just post it in a comment and let me know what you guys think about this, because for me, honestly, I like more options, and with more options, probably more possibility will come out of it. So the E25 seems a more versatile option, in my opinion. Now, even though I'm not saying the SU-122 is bad, I'm just saying the E25 is currently more fun because you can drive around like an ELC with an auto-loading gun. That's basically it. So it is the same size as this son of a bitch. Where the hell is it? Where the hell is my ELC? It is the same size as this. Small, superiorly small. And it has a better camo rating than the ELC. The ELC has about 22% camo rating. This thing has 25%. With camo nets, camouflage and crew, this tank could go up to 60% in freaking camouflage rating. Now what that means is a tank who has 400 meters of view range has to get within 180-ish meters of view in order to spot you. That is phenomenally good. They have to get very close in order to see you, because you're mitigating their view range by 61%. You're minusing their view range by their 61%. Holy shit, that is good. Whereas the SU-122-44 is also not bad. You have to mitigate by around 40-ish, 50-ish%. But still, Jesus, both tanks are like invisible. So in my final decision, I've been talking to myself about E25. I really would like to hear you guys' opinion on this, but E25. Yeah, definitely. Fuck it. My decision is final. I'm buying the E25. Where the hell is the E25? Ah, my mouth is parched. I've been talking to myself. It's very hard to talk to yourself for 30 minutes without not drying off mouth. Alright, so I'll buy the E25. You don't have to buy a crew, obviously. It's a premium tank. So I'll buy it. Ta-da! And there goes all my fucking gold. But in my opinion, the E25 is worth it. Now let's compare the size of the ELC to the E25. Where the hell is my new E25? It's fucking small as god. You already feel how amazing this thing is because of the size of it. Oh, look at it. It's just barely bigger than the ELC. Holy shit. It's a fucking cockroach. So yeah, in my honesty, I would get the SU-122-44 later because both tanks are good. But for the first tank, I would recommend the E25 because it can perform as a scout role. Now, it is a very controversial topic ever since the E25 was released, as well as the SU-122-44. But I really would like to hear you guys' opinion on this, and so post it in the comments below, and let me know. Also, if you like the video, rate and subscribe like always, and it is a very controversial topic, and I'd really like to hear you guys' opinion about it. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video of enjoying me talking to myself for fucking 30 minutes and discussing. I'm being a tank nerd basically. So if you like the video and if you like enjoying me discussing the basic how you should spend your money, obviously. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace.